Hey class, welcome back. Today we are talking about, we're doing a bit of a grammar lesson actually. And you're wondering, why grammar? We've studied this in high school. I know this already. If you do, that's great. Amazing. You'll do well on the quiz. But this is something that I find and other professors find quite often in their assignments. There's a problem with comma splices and run-on sentences, so among other things. But today we'll just focus on this. And yeah, it will be on the quiz most likely. So let's dive in. What's a splice? Well, to splice just means to join two things, you know. So if you're with Rogers Cable or you're doing DNA or you're in the movie The Fly, then you know all about splicing. It just means to join two complete sentences with a comma, okay? In this case, it's a comma splice. So again, what's a complete sentence? You need a subject, so you know, a person, a place, a thing, and a verb, so an action word. So for example, a complete sentence would be The Simpsons was a hilarious show in the mid-1990s. The Simpsons is the subject and the verb is was, because it's a past version of to be. Rob loves video games, especially those in the survival horror genre. So Rob is the subject and the verb is love or to love. There you go, you've got a complete sentence. It could be just Rob loves video games, period. That's a sentence. Move my Zoom bar out of the way here. So examples of a comma splice. He isn't a great cook. He burns everything. What's the problem there? I think we know what the person's trying to say, don't we? Yes, okay, so native English speakers will be able to understand this, but this is actually not grammatically correct. He isn't a great cook. That's a full sentence on its own. He burns everything, also a full sentence on its own. But the author here has joined these two sentences or spliced them together with a comma, hence the term comma splice. Let's not do this because it's not proper English. And okay, maybe some people can understand it, but some people won't. Roger hates reality TV shows. He prefers to watch sports. Okay, great, that's true. But again, two independent sentences. These are complete sentences joined by a comma. So there's a way to fix this. We're going to get to this. One more. The class was boring, comma. I fell asleep. Okay, that may be true. Some classes are quite boring, but you probably don't want to admit it to your professor and you don't want to write it like this. It's an incorrect sentence. Last one. Iguanas make great pets. They are so cute. Again, two independent sentences, but they're joined by a comma, becoming a comma splice. Okay, carrying on. How do you get around a comma splice? Well, there are actually four ways. So the first is the easiest probably. Use a period to break the sentence into two. Take out that comma, put in a period. Now you've got two separate sentences as they were intended to be, perhaps. Second one, use a coordinator. I don't think we've covered that yet, but we'll get into it in a second. Use a semicolon. You know that interesting little, it's not a colon, it's not a comma, but it's a semicolon. So there's a dot on top and a comma on the bottom. That's a semicolon. You can join or splice two complete sentences together with that semicolon. The last one is make one sentence subordinate. So what do I mean by this? Let's go one by one. So using a period, you break your sentence into two sentences. So Dad has a headache. I can't play guitar. That is a comma splice. It's not proper English. Dad has a headache, period. I can't play guitar. Fixed. There you go. Unfortunately, there's a problem with this. If you're continuously using these little short sentences with periods at the end, and there's no real flow to them, you're going to sound like a robot. Although it would be proper English. A coordinator. So what's a coordinator? It's just a little word that joins two complete sentences. So for example, but is an example of a coordinator. They gamble, but they don't smoke. Right? If you said they gamble, comma, they don't smoke, that would be a comma splice. Fanboys. Here's another acronym. I think we did wasabi last week. Remember those? I believe it was for our subordinators. Here are some, here's one acronym for our coordinators. Fanboys, F-A-N-B-O-Y-S. So, for, and, not, but, or, yet. So, these are the most common, I would say, coordinators. So let's check this out. We have three splices here. Sally tried to drive the car wouldn't start. You see how those are two separate sentences, or they should be? but the person had put a comma here. It's not correct. It sounds weird, and it will be treated strangely by your audience. Next one, you should wear a helmet. You might hurt your head. True, but it's not proper sentence. Next one, Doug cannot swim. He does not go to the beach. Okay, how do we fix this? Sally tried to drive the car, but the car wouldn't start. And what are we doing here? We're using a coordinator. Brilliant. Next one, you should wear a helmet or you might hurt your head, right? We're back to fanboys here. Remember that acronym because it will help you on the test specifically. Doug cannot swim, so he does not go to the beach. Just that little word so has turned this comma splice, these two sentences that really bump into each other, into a sentence that flows, right? Hopefully most of you are at a level of English that you understand this, but if not, we can practice, and we will. Third way you can defeat the splice, use a semicolon. A semicolon is, again, that here in green, this device right here. It's not a colon, it's not a comma, it's a semicolon. It joins two complete sentences that are immediately related. You can't use this anytime you want. If you have like, I like dogs, semicolon, I'm going to the beach. Those two ideas are not related. But if you have two ideas that are logically related, like this one, Dad has a headache, semicolon, I can't play guitar. You can almost replace that with therefore, right? Although you wouldn't speak like that. The reason I can't play guitar is because Dad has a headache. If I do play guitar, it's noisy. It's going to worsen his headache, right? Or he'll kill me. I don't know. Next one, class was exciting. I had fun. You need something there, right? And lucky for us, those two ideas join, right? Because it's true. Most classes are super exciting and you have a ton of fun. So we can put that semicolon there and it makes sense. I think we're going to do another lecture on semicolons, so stay tuned. Last way we can fix a comma splice, make one sentence subordinate. I think we did this in a previous lesson where we have two different ideas and one is subordinate to the other. One only makes sense because it's attached to the other. So now we're using a subordinator because Dad has a headache, I can't play guitar. And you can start a sentence with because. Whoever tells you you can't, they're wrong. It's just wrong. Because Dad has a headache, I can't play guitar. Now we can keep that comma there. It's not a comma splice because we put because. If it was just Dad has a headache, I can't play guitar, now we got a problem. But because, it's like if this, then that, because this happened, right? So it's a two-part statement, a two-part thought. Because Dad has a headache, I can't play guitar. Or maybe we don't need because. We could say until Dad has a headache, I will play guitar. We flip the idea around, but we're still using a subordinator, until. And we can do that because both of these ideas about the headache and the guitar go together. So let's recap this a little bit. Here are your 4 ways to fix a comma splice. So if the sentence was, you've got a comma splice, comma, I can fix it, which is the problem sentence, here's how you fix it, 4 ways. If you've got a comma splice, I can fix it. That's the subordinator. You've got a comma splice, but I can fix it. That's the coordinator. You've got a comma splice, semicolon, I can fix it. Or the last one, probably not the best. You've got a comma splice, period. I can fix it. Right? Sounds a bit robotic, but now all of these 4 bullets are proper English. So now that's comma splices, which is again very common in student papers. Let's try to avoid this. Another common problem is the run-on sentence. And contrary to what many people think, this is not just a very long sentence that runs on and on and on and on. No, that's not what the meaning is. Remember this movie, Running Man? I think I watched this the other day. It was just horrible. I loved it. So a run-on sentence is also called a fuse sentence. It's not just the length of it, but what we're talking about is this. It's a group of sentences clustered together without any punctuation. You might hear 5-year-olds do this, or even some 10-year-olds. So let me tell you what we're looking at here. Here's a really bad sentence. I really love going to the movies. When I go with my friends, we usually have a great time. However, sometimes we fight over which film to go and see. Okay, you see what I mean? Probably like a 5-year-old, maybe a 12-year-old in some cases. There's a problem here because these are separate ideas that belong in separate sentences. Looks like there's actually 3. Yeah. 3 different sentences here. So let's fix that. I really love going to the movies, period. When I go with my friends, we usually have a great time, period. However, comma, sometimes we fight over which film to go and see. That's great. That's not now, it's not a run-on sentence anymore. It's 3 separate sentences. You could change this. Sure, you could make it maybe 2 sentences using a coordinator or a subordinator, but right now it sounds okay. It's not high literature, but at least it's proper English. This is very common. Again, I see this all the time, and it really drives me crazy because it impacts your communication. We're not just doing proper English grammar because it's the rules, right? I mean, it is the rules in this course, but I don't care. The rules to me are not that important. It's only when they make sense. And it makes sense to follow these rules because it improves your communication. If you use comma splices, if you use run-on sentences, people will have a harder time understanding you, and it just won't sound as good. People will get stopped thinking, oh, there's an error there somewhere. It doesn't sound right. Okay, and if you're writing or your speaking doesn't sound right, you're hurting your communication, and that's the whole idea of this course, is to become a better communicator. So knowing what makes a complete sentence is the first step to fixing the problem. Now let's practice, okay? Let's do this worksheet on comma splices and run-on sentences. Normally we'd be doing this in class, but hey, it's a new world. So let's just, I'll tell you what, we'll go through these 7 examples and I'll stop it at the wrong sentence. You pause the video and you try to do it on your own. I am actually going to upload the Word document with all the questions. You can do it in pencil or paper if you want, on paper if you want. Or just do it on video here with me. Pause the video after I read out the sentence that's incorrect, and then I'll show you the fixed version. Here we go. Number 1, I like cats, however, they can be a pain sometimes. Ooh, okay, what's wrong with that? Pause it, take a stab at it, write it out yourself, type it out, try it. See if you can get 7 out of 7. Okay, so my fixed version, and by the way, there could be many, right? You could use the 4 different mechanisms to fix run-on sentences, but here's what I came up with. I like cats, semicolon. However, they can be a pain sometimes. Okay, you see what we did there? I like cats is a complete sentence on its own. Like is the verb, cats is the subject. That's a complete sentence. Very simple one, but it works. However, anytime you see however, you need a comma after. Think about it. However, comma. However is indicating to the listener or the reader you're about to say something different, something oppositional or slightly different than what you just said. However, comma, they can be a pain sometimes. Number 2, my cat, however, is the best cat ever. That's incorrect. Take a minute, pause it, write out the version that you would use to fix it. Okay, my cat, comma, however, is the best cat ever. Now, this is proper. You can have however surrounded by 2 commas on either end. I don't like it though. It's very choppy. So I'd prefer my cat, period. My cat, however, is the best cat ever. I'd prefer something like my cat is the best cat ever. Take out however. But in this case, we're just fixing it. We do need those 2 commas. Now that it's no longer a comma splice. Number 3, he slapped his desk in disgust. He failed another test and had ruined his chances for passing this year. His only option was to take the course over. Have you spotted the errors? Pause it, write it out on your own, and we'll keep going. So how to fix this? Well, that's a very long sentence or run-on sentence. So let's break it up. He slapped his desk in disgust, period. That's a sentence. He failed another test and had ruined his chances for passing this year, period. His only option was to take the course over. Again, there are other ways to fix this, but this is the simplest one probably. Number 4, I struggled to keep my head above water. I tried to shout for help, but nobody heard. Eventually, I sank to the bottom of the lake. All the fish looked at me with sorrow in their eyes. Yeah, standard, typical story in Hollywood, right? Okay, so what's the problem? Pause it, try it out. Here's what I got. I struggled to keep my head above water, period. Yeah, that's a complete sentence. I tried to shout for help, comma, but nobody heard, period. Next sentence. Eventually, I sank to the bottom of the lake, period. All of the fish looked at me with sorrow in their eyes. Okay, great. Now they are each of those complete sentences. They're not run-ons. They don't have a comma splice. That's better English. The first one, you sound like you are a very young person who doesn't know how to compose a sentence. And you want to avoid this in your career. You want to avoid this in the business world or wherever you're working. It's not good to seem like you don't know how to use the language. Okay, number 5. The earthquake was devastating. Tall buildings crumbled and fell to the ground. People everywhere were hurt and screaming. I was lucky because I was in an airplane. Yeah, so you can probably see where the problems are. Like this comma doesn't belong there for sure. So pause it, try it. There we go. The earthquake was devastating, period. Tall buildings crumbled and fell to the ground, period. People everywhere were hurt and screaming, period. I was lucky because I was in an airplane. Right? You see that each of those sentences now has a subject and a verb. You can pause it and go look if you like. But it's not a run-on sentence where everything's been crammed in together and you sound like you're running out of breath, right? Okay, well, let's just do one more. Yeah, this one makes me laugh. Jen made many promises she had no intention of keeping. First, she said she was going to the store, and then she said she was going to the mall. Instead, she left the country and traveled to Scotland. Once there, she changed her name to Angus. That's high art. I love it. Okay, so how do you fix it? Let's go on. Jen made many promises she had no intention of keeping. That's a great sentence on its own. Why not just stop there? First, she said she was going to the store, and then she said she was going to the mall. Right? We can still combine those two thoughts with a comma if we say first. Then we go to instead, because first she said she was doing this, instead she did this, right? Now it's starting to flow a little bit better. Instead, comma, she left the country and traveled to Scotland, period. If you did Scotland once, no, that's a separate sentence. You have to stop, catch your breath with the period, right? And that's usually what a period does, is it forces the reader or the speaker to take a breath, which you need when you're talking. Once there, she changed her name to Angus. That's a great sentence too. Okay, so we'll cut it there. And thanks for watching. You can go ahead and do the worksheet on your own if you want. I will upload it to FOL, and we'll continue with another video. Thanks for watching.